Hello. I got a bit carried away.
Now, there was a motorbike there, I'm sure, last time we were here.
Once upon a time, and then I went all Jerry Burgess on it and took it apart. So, for those of you who don't know who that is, that was Valentino Rossi's crew chief for years. So, it is stripped. Forks, frame, swing arm, engine, exhaust, radiators, leaking brake crap. Do us a favour, like and subscribe the video, smash them buttons for us, because it does help us out. People don't realise how important it is, especially like subscribe obviously builds the value of the channel. So what are we at now, Dave? 13,000?
Just hit 13, yeah.
So that helps, but like the like button and stuff like that helps YouTube algorithms and the engagement and stuff. So do that for us. Make a comment in the comments below. Make a comment in the comments below? Make a comment below, and we'll give away like 5 t-shirts. We'll just pick people at random, or something that have got something nice to say for Josh, or if you want to see something in the next bike videos, put something in, engage with a video. We'll pick 5 people, we'll reach out to you, and we'll send you a t-shirt as modelled by the Grass Tracker.
Here we go. Look at that.
They're clean.
No,
like
we're not
we have clean t-shirts.
We're not going to give yours away, are we, Mitch?
No, you don't want this one.
No.
So what we got?
Can you see what's on the back? Here we go.
So what we got? We got winners focus on winning. We got more power fixes everything, and we got full send. So
you know what to do.
Yeah, let's go on with it.
Let's have a quick spin round. So we have
frame, swing arm, linkage, carbon fiber hugger. Like I've got to cut the chain because it goes through the swing arm. All the spindles, calipers, ABS unit, all the brake stuff. Obviously then the engine with the hole in the side, which is leaking oil all over my floor.
Whoops.
Subframe, like broken bars, bent bars. That's the top yoke, but we'll change that so it hasn't got the key in it. Master cylinder, which we're going to change that. The oil cooler's there, which is fine. The radiator's there, but the radiator's knackered. Yes.
Lots of bits.
So when you sit here and look at it and you kind of go, what are we keeping? This box.
That's it.
Not even that, because some of that is going. So yeah. The frame needs a good clean. So Josh can clean that, tart that up. That's for him to do. He's going to do the swing arm. So loads of this will disappear. We won't use a shock. We will use the forks. So we'll go on a road trip to PCR and get them to build the forks for us. I want to try and film that as well. So that'd be quite a cool video.
Yep.
So yeah, but we had my lad in. Last week was half term, so Callum was in helping strip it, and so was Mikey Hardie, who's the lad who just came close to winning British Supersport Championship.
And that's who you sponsor,
British
isn't it?
Junior Supersport, yeah. So we sponsor him. So like he's just been out in Jerez now doing 37s on his dad's R1. No, sorry, not Jerez, Cartagena. They go to Jerez next week. So that kid's got a big future on the bikes. So I had them stripping bikes down, or stripping this down. So hopefully the footage we caught will be now.
Ta-da!
Yeah. yeah, someone very kindly donated some money to Josh on his. I did write their name, but it wasn't their name. So thank you for them who's done that. They've sent Josh some money. Some people have dropped some bits off. So we've got grips, clip-ons. Someone's dropped off some foot pegs. Yeah, so people have been really good about it and sort of sent stuff down. So I think Josh is quite flattered by that. We need to arrange to get him down here.
Yeah.
But I might take him to Paul's. I might take him to see Paul, because obviously they've raced each other for years as well. So take him on a road trip when we do suspension.
Cool.
So that's not too bad. So this will all, whoops, BMW tank. This should all like go through it now and sort of throw a load of stuff out. Dennis Trollope, who's looked after the paddock at NG Racing's got Kit Lumen ECU. So he said he'll do Josh a bit of a deal on that. So yeah, we just need to start going through it now, you know, and changing the crap, changing the bits we don't want. So we'll get through it. Engine's a big problem we've got to sort out. That's the biggest problem.
Yep.
Figure out what we're going to do there. So yeah, should be quite good. Should be quite good. So this is the worst. This is it now. It'll either go back together or it stays like this.
Yeah.
So yeah, should be a bit of a weapon. The dash works, that's fine. So we'll just harvest anything that's usable. We'll harvest off stuff and then we'll throw the rest away. So like radiator's junk, that can go. We'll change master cylinder, stuff like that. All the brake lines will go. I just put them in that box because just brake fluid just leaks out of everything.
Are you keeping the stock wheels, or are you going to put something?
Yeah, stock wheels. So they're Marsaconis, so stock wheels.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure they're straight. You know, the club Josh grew up racing for said they'll sort him a set of tyres to start off with, so that's fine. So yeah, people have been really good about it. Everything just needs to go through the hot wash now. So it's a bit of a tip because we've had a move around. So the hot wash tank's down here now.
Nice.
And then the heater for the workshop's behind you, so stuff's just having a bit of a move around. But yeah, so it should be quite cool. And then I was trying to think, like last time we told a couple of stories of sort of things that had gone on, like funny stuff, like him crashing at Cadwell.
Yeah.
And it was, I'm sure it was 2012. Or was it 2011, 2012? He ended up halfway through the year riding. This was probably the best I've ever seen him ride. He ended up filling Luke Mossey's spot at Smith's on the Triumph in British Supersport, and he was fighting with Alistair Seeley for pole at Donington Park, and that's like the best I've ever seen him ride. He was just out of this world that day, because he won Stock 600 Championship in 2010, and then 2011 with the same team, they went straight up to Superbikes. And I wouldn't say he was out of his depth. Talent, ability-wise, I don't think he was, because he beat Keogh in one race. So I don't think he was but the team didn't know what they were doing. Like the guy setting a suspension and doing a MoTeC used to do suspension on motocross bikes, and then all of a sudden he's got a laptop in his hand, and the team just. Lads have done it since, so I would say like Ryan Vickers has done it. He jumped straight from Stock 6 to Superbikes, but he went into a proper team who knew what they were doing. So he had a platform to show himself off, whereas Josh never really had that platform. And when you jump on a Superbike, where even for example on a Superbike, you can change the angle of the steering head. So that's the steering head, right? So you can change the angle that's sat in there. It needs something pole-like. There we go, that ball worked. Right. So your forks sit like that, and then your bars, right. So you can affect, at the minute, that's the head angle. So you can, on a Superbike, you can affect this angle, yeah?
Yeah.
And that then changes the rake of the front forks. And then you start getting into rake control. So you start affecting how the bike feels and what it does at speed and what it does at turning. Now that's super complex, way too much for this video to start getting into, because 95% of the people won't need to change it. So that's one setting you can change. You can then also change, so that's head angle, we call that head angle. You can then also change your offset. So if you take the center of your fork and the center of your head spindle, you can change your offset. You can make that distance further or less. That's two things along, like with, so this bike doesn't have adjustable rear swing arm height, but my BMW does. You take spacers out and you turn them upside down and back to front. Those three things completely transform, like unbelievably transform how a bike handles. So when you go from stock 600 or stock 1000 or even Super Sport, where you're not allowed to change those things, and then you go and get on a Superbike, you blow riders' heads apart. So you need someone in the garage who understands what each one of those things is and how they work. So we used to use a program called MoTeC. All the Superbike teams use it, and I used to use it. I'm not in a paddock so much anymore. But you put all these numbers into a program, and you can go, right, okay, well, I'm going to drop the forks through 5 mil for example, or I'm going to change my spring rate, and it will show you how the center of gravity changes, or by making that one change, what else changes. So that you're not a guy on a track day bouncing a bike up and down going, oh, I think I need to do this. You're actually giving calculated changes. So when a rider comes in and goes, the bike feels like it's doing this, so say maybe turning's not great, and then the crew chief goes, right, okay, well, I think really from what he said and what I can see on the data, I want to change this. What that MoTeC program then gives you is what else you need to change to keep everything else the same, or as much the same as you can. So people change their chain length, changing a sprocket, right? You go on a track day, or you go and start club racing, and you go to a track and you go, right, okay, I'm going to change my sprocket because my gearing's wrong. That has a huge effect, right? One, it lengthens or shortens the bike, so it shortens your wheelbase, right? That has a massive effect on what that effect is. What people also don't appreciate is normally the swing arm adjustment is angled, right? It's never parallel to the floor, which is then when you start getting into the top Superbike, the proper factory level swing arms, where they can control that a little bit more, but you essentially, your adjustment then is at an angle. So when you start pulling the wheel in and out, you change the height at the rear of the bike. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like as you start bringing the wheel further and further in the bike, you drop the swing arm more and more and more, because the swing arm adjustment in the back, this, let me climb through. Yeah. So in a perfect world where no changes or nothing, that would always be parallel, but it's never like that. It's always at an angle. So when I start pulling, state of this, look. When I start pulling, that's a fixed distance. So let me put a spacer on that. Right, that's a fixed. That's not even good enough for it. I'm like Professor Proton with my experiments. Right, so I've set a swing arm up. So what we're saying about is when people on track days or people at club racing and sort of medium level British racing, you go changing sprockets or changing gearing to get the power and the speed where you want it. What people forget to take into account is, and this is oversimplified as you can see, by changing your position of your rear wheel pivot, you change your swing arm height, or you can change your swing arm height. So then all of a sudden, now in that instance, you start to change the balance of the bike. Yeah. So you get a rider come in and you go, oh, I hate this gearing, and you do X, Y, and Z, and you change it, and by making the wheelbase shorter, you've meant the bike turns in, the bike's more unstable. Yeah. So a bike might want to go in, but then it wheelies everywhere, or it's the balance, you've slammed it on its ass, or all these things have an effect on what's going on. So what you would normally say is, in a rough world, is you put the bike on its nose and it will want to turn in, right? You make a bike shorter and it will want to wheelie. So for example, I struggle a lot with wheelies because I don't have much body weight, but if I set the bike long to stop it wheeling, I can't turn it. I can't get it to go in because I've got to make it so long because of my physical attributes that I then can't get it to do what it wants. So what's better to have is, I'd much rather have a bike that goes in on the nose, but I've got to live on the back brake. So that's how I set my bike up. R1s like to be low at the back and long. That's because they are naturally a short bike anyway. So what we do is we machine material out of the back of this swing arm. Yeah, so we can get the wheel back as far as we can. But what that also does is that picks the swing arm up, which changes the balance of the bike. So you've got to take that into account. Now, how this all sort of goes for loop is by going to, say, when Josh went from super stocks to super bikes, he had people around him that believed in him and wanted to see him do best, but didn't have a clue. So they went and bought a bike off a guy who didn't know how to set it up in the first place. They put him on it, and then they didn't know how for him to find the window. When the bike was in the window at the right tracks, he would beat the likes of Ryuichi Kiyanari, and he would do well on this bike. But then it goes somewhere else, and you're always fighting this window. On a stock bike or production bike, the window's really wide to get it in. So you go and give the likes of, I don't know, who's the top lad at the minute, like Billy McConnell, Josh, you can give Josh an R1, a new Fireblade, a new this, a new that. Leave it bone stock and take him to a track, and they'll all take it to a level where they go, right, okay, I'm out of suspension, I'm out of damper, I'm out of fork spring, I'm out of this. Because the bike's already in a tight window and you can't go change anything else. Danny Buchan, 2012, 2013, done like a 28 on around Brands GP on a stock 1000 bike. I think at the time it would have put him like 11th on a Superbike grid. You know, so though they're really capable bikes, the problem comes when you offer more setting and neither the team or at the time a 20-year-old kid has the understanding how to make that, how to get the best out of it. So the Superbike team, the Superbike thing ended, air racing ended, and Josh's head was shot. And Luke Mossey'd had a bad crash and he went and rode at Smith's, and literally the boy rolled out of pit lane and was pole. That's how good he was. That's it. When you took away the confusion of all the crap from him and the team, and you put him in a team, so like Kev was running him at the time, who's super smart with that sort of stuff, the boy could just ride a bike. Because you need experience. Like now, you put Josh on a bike, and he'll come in, I've run him for years and years and years, and he'll come in and he'll go, oh, it's doing this, it's doing that, it's doing this. You know, so we missed half of 2015, and we come back late in 2015, and we jumped an Evo class at Supersport. Boy went from not racing to winning races. And you've got to be, in bike racing, you've got to be surrounded by people who know more than you. So going back to Mikey now, the trick with Mikey is making sure the people in the garage are always smarter than you. And that's when things like this program, you know, you look at Brad Ray last year on that BMW, did nothing. Not because the team weren't trying or the team didn't know, the guy running that team knows a lot. But this year, they put him on a bike that he believed in and he had trust in, and then everybody else's skills could come into effect as well. And then his crew chiefs, like Dave's pretty mega as well. So it's not just about having this, a 2015 R1. There'll be bikes out here that are much, much better. You go and buy, like everyone's on them new CBR 1000s in stock 1000s now. That's like the bike to be on. A good rider on this will still smoke everybody. So it's how you then set your tools up, how you set your stand up, how much you understand. You know, we've seen riders progress up, get to super bikes, and they can't do any more, and then they've got to come back down because they don't know how to get the best out of it. So that's the difficulty. And then then you go to World Superbikes, that's another level, and then you go to MotoGP, and that's another level. So yeah, it's racing's, people see lads get on bikes and they do shit, or you know, they can't shoot. They get a hard time, especially with this media bashing world at the minute now. You know, what's a good example? Yeah, you'd probably say Scott Redding. Scott Redding last year won British Championship, is MotoGP rider, Ducati in British Championship, won it on his first go, literally in for a season, out, Ducati World Superbikes, fighting Toprak and Johnny Ray, gone to BMW and started the season was nowhere. Like seconds off. But he's got the belief in himself and he knows what the bike needs to do. The team have got the tools and they're chipping away. So like the big thing for BMW this year was that swing arm. They couldn't get edge grip. So just the flex and everything was all wrong. So when they're trying to drive off the tyre, it would just spin. They can't get a bike to bite in and use the tyre up. So to get to the end of the race, and they had to have brand new tyres coming off the bike because they're not using the tyre. You know? Whereas the opposite at the minute now is Toprak and Johnny are having to push so hard to stay with the bloody Italian missile that they're using tyre up. So if they're not in the lead of the race by like 10 or 12 of the big race, they're not going to win it because Alvaro's my size got a ridiculous advantage on the straight, so he doesn't have to race and he hasn't got to use tyre. And that's bike racing.
Here we go. In a nutshell.
It is like even that, right? You take that swing arm, that is someone's life work.
Yep.
That on its own is a lifetime's amount of study and understanding and engineering and how that affects everything else. And it's, you know, it's the more and more you know about it, the more and more you realise how much you don't know. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's like Formula One. What is it now? 1,000 people work for like Mercedes and Red Bull and all that.
It's insane, isn't it?
Yeah. And they're all sat there for one thing.
Yep.
That's it. And it's bike racing doesn't have that kind of money. MotoGP, still not that kind of money. But you know, that's the pinnacle. But this is it washes down. Do you know what I mean? We're not going to have ride-out devices, but the electronic side of it washes down. Like the new stuff now, what you can do with a throttle on the edge of the tyre is mental. You can just literally lash it on, and that's fine. But when you start getting then down to like the track day level, and then the bike tells you, oh, I can't keep up with this, that's why now you see massive crashes at track days and low-level club racing, because when it does go wrong, you're so far beyond your own limits and the limits of the tyre that when the electronics can't keep up, you go into space. But so Josh needs to get clean in and buying me bits.
Yes.
And then we'll have something to do for the next one.